Peace, family. We're back once again. DOA TBM. You boy Fozzie Dutra representing for bat.online.com. Once again, joined with T-Juda, tapping in with us from the States. And we definitely want to say peace to everybody out there in the family worldwide. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I'm looking forward to a positive week this week that we are currently in. Now, we know it's tumultuous times right now. There's a lot of things going on around the world. We want to touch on a few current events and topics and stuff that are affecting us as a people in the community. Just today, I saw a video from, I believe it was somebody in the Israeli Congress, and they were saying one of their biggest threats is the young black youth of America, which some people find strange. And when we're looking at just the whole conflict, what's happening between Israel and Palestine, there's been quite a few different people chiming in regards to how this affects black people, how it's currently affecting them, and how it could affect us going forward. So what's good with you, T?
Good, good. All right. Good to be joining you again. Been a while, but yeah, we have to, voice our opinions because opinions do matter. Ones that the masses tend to gravitate toward it, that's okay though, as long as it's out there in the universe. Because unfortunately, the times we live in today, man, most people tend to run away from these kind of topics. But you know how that goes.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, how's things, the climate currently out there in the States? We're seeing a lot of protests out here in the UK, which some are saying are pro-Hamas or pro-Palestine protests. Is there those sorts of protests happening in the States?
You know what? Yeah, in New York City they had one, if I'm not mistaken. And I just got a source, because I do a lot of research myself, and I'm always monitoring the news. And yeah, they said that there's gonna be actually some kind of you can't believe everything you hear on the internet. At the same time, I don't dismiss it because I think we have to do our research. And a lot of people try to post narratives out there just to, you never know what people's agendas are. So yeah, it's been speculation that it's going to be some kind of like, oh, it's going to be an anti-American this and that. I'm like, man, see, sounds like the powers to be or whoever powers. You always got to watch out for other outside powers that just got their own agenda. They try to hijack a movement. Then next you know, they got everybody fighting, man. And I think that, like you said, these wars it's we talking about no one wins in a war. We know that.
Amen, brother. And I think, I echo that sentiment where a lot of us within the community, and I've seen it from a lot of black people in the diaspora around the world, are absolutely sick to death of all these wars and destruction, people fighting over land, people fighting over material stuff, killing people, slaughtering people, and trying to take a moral stance and say, hey, we're right, or they did it to us, or we did it to them. And we see a lot of that happening with a lot of groups around the world. So, we want to say we definitely condemn any forms of terrorism, but also the brutality and destruction and wars that we see around the world. We also condemn that too because we advocate for peace for all beings on earth.
Amen. I couldn't put it no better.
Yeah, and you made an interesting point, and which we're going to explore a little bit because there is somewhat of an anti-American sentiment. We see it also an anti-UK sentiment, and to some degree, people feel an anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli sentiment. Now, the thing is, we can't speak for any particular groups, but when we're looking at some of these groups like Hamas, that I believe are part of the Arab nation, it's so much things happening where we see now the effects spilling over onto black people. We've heard Israel make a statement in one of their their forums. Our best way to describe it, it looked like it was one of their political forums, and they were speaking on black young Americans being like a threat. Now, some people deduce that to the understanding that we have seen a rise of, the Hebrew Israelite movement. We've seen a rise of people claiming their heritage. We've seen Israel and certain Arab nations in the past, be disparaging towards black people. We've seen even Egypt as well, be disparaging towards black people and say, you guys didn't create the pyramids, you guys are taking our identity. So when I mention all this, when we talk about displacement, we know that there is a vast amount of black people displaced worldwide as effects of slavery, colonialism, the slave trade, a lot of the brutality and stuff that still exists to this day. But what I find interesting is we've seen a condemnation of black people within Palestine and also within Israel. Some of them are getting their voices to speak out. Obviously, we understand it's quite difficult. But what's concerning is, like I said, you see the Hebrew Israelites, which I believe, are somewhat now being, I don't want to say targeted, but are being opposed by people within Israel. And also, we're seeing recently, which was documented in Birmingham City in the UK, we see the pro-Palestine group who was very egregious towards the Hebrew Israelite community also. So in terms of like the black people, it's like they can't win. It's in a sense like where it's not even a fight they're involved in, but in one aspect people don't count them, but then they want to count them or they want them to take a side, and it seems like they're facing opposition from sort of both sides within this conflict. I mean, what do you think about that?
Hey, there you go. There you go. And I'm trying to keep up with you, man. 'Cause I know you are like a pioneer in this game. And you know me, I'm a basic person. You know what I mean? But yeah, definitely. And it's like you know, it is something, man. You talking about being hypocritical, and you know that's why a lot of these brothers are these men, brothers, are speaking out. You know what I'm saying? They like, hey, we at a time now, we are fulfilling prophecies, and we know a lot of these nations, some of them don't even believe in, the Creator. So, to them, they just figure like, we can do what we want whenever we want, and we don't have to pay the piper. But little do they know, it don't work like that. See, people think that power equals oppressing people. You know what I'm saying? They think that money means that they can go around and do what they want and not face consequences. Oh no, no, no. We're talking about their kids is going to have to deal with this problem. And right now, their ancestors, the mortal ones right now, they are the ones that's causing all these social issues, man. It's like, and they think they're not gonna have to face judgment for that. And so, yeah, you're right, man. It's like the anti so-called black people rhetoric has been going on for like generations. Now you're starting to see that a lot of things are starting to manifest. A lot of people are being exposed for hypocritical. You know what I'm saying? So black people don't have nothing to do with this. But I mean, we not saying that we are we do advocate for peace, and we want both sides to resolve this issue. However, you know what I'm saying? It's been in our groups though. No group is perfect. So for them to sit down and try to discover and say, hey, I'm black with this, black with that, they need to take a look inside their own cultures, because I did research and a lot of them corruption, and so and some of them Palestine, are racist. You know what I'm saying? And
Amen.
same thing with some of them Israelis. They been mistreating. They were trying to spell some of the so-called black people out their country, and now they want these guys to turn around and be patriots all of a sudden, fight and go to war and die for them. I'm sorry, but I got a problem with that.
Yeah, no, I mean a great point. Some people they feel as though religion plays a huge part in some of these events that we're seeing happening now, especially in regards to like the Palestinians. They feel as though there's a lot of oppressive regime. We've heard people speaking out recently, even from within the Muslim community, which has been a shock to a lot of people. And some say, courage. It takes a lot of courage for them to speak out, because we've seen, people from the Muslim community now speaking out and saying, let's be honest, we've been very racist to black people, even within Palestine, within the Arab world, and we treat black people like they're beneath us, and some of them have been speaking out now, and some have even spoke out to their, I guess what they feel is their indoctrination into that particular religious theology from a young age, and they say there's a lot of hostility towards other people that aren't a part of their group. Now, I say that I'm not saying that the Israelis are perfect or anything in any aspect, but maybe we don't see as much overt aggression in that way when it comes to them displaying their religion, because some feel ultimately, the Jews in that way are a bit more peaceful in the context of, I know this could be political. Some may say, how could you say they're peaceful when they're currently bombing Gaza and so on and so forth? But when we talk about how people carry themselves within their religion. Some say there's a heavy doctrine within some of these groups where it's like what I believe is the most important thing, what I believe is the one and only way of doing things and thinking, and anybody else who don't believe that, to hell with them. And I think that kind of mentality is very dangerous, and we see that pervaded through society. Like I mentioned, one of the protests that happened within the UK with some Hebrew Israelite brothers who were out preaching their word and their message, and they was cornered by a large group of pro-Palestine protesters who were, very vocal in saying they feel that their needs should be listened to, but they didn't want to listen to what the Hebrew Israelite brothers had to say. Now, I say all that to say because sometimes these groups, and I'm not saying any group is better than the other, like you said, especially when it comes to religions, because some people feel as though what they believe is perfect and that's the be all and end all. Now, we know we don't live in a world where religion is just going to go away. So it's quite an interesting one where we're seeing now the effects of how these things are affecting just the average people in the public. It's a cause for concern to some, because I was under the understanding that most religions teach love thy neighbor and love everybody and treat them the same, even if they believe different, and no racism and stuff. So I think it's a great point that you mentioned where we're seeing a lot of hypocrisy displayed because if your religion tells you to do that, live and let live and love thy neighbor, why can't we see that in actuality with people living it out?
Man, sir, and that's the thing. A lot of these groups get hijacked. You know what I'm saying? You always got them people that it's people that look like just because they look like ethnic group, that don't mean they are your people spiritually. You see, that's the problem. A lot of these people, they just like you said with hypocrisy, they get in these so-called religions, and then they run around with their own agendas, and so they use that as some kind of they try to fill some kind of void, and so very disrespectful, and we even got that in every ethnic group where some people, eventually they go get exposed, because they no lie shall live forever, and so what we seen it is an example of that we got prophecy fulfilling itself, and and so I'm saying, oh well, prophecy fulfilling itself for a long time, but you know what? Things is manifesting, man. We talking about like World War III on brink of that, and this is nothing to play with now because, I sometimes I wonder, man, why come human beings just can't just have a mutual respect for each other? But the West, man, has played a lot of role in all this confusion. Let's be honest, man. They instigate a lot of this, and I'm not anti-West, but I'm just being honest about it. I can't sugarcoat nothing. And them elites over there, some of them, I ain't saying all of them wicked, but let's be honest. A lot of them elites, man, and majority of them are Caucasian males, and they start these wars, and so a lot of them groups, don't try to lump us in with them, saying, "Oh, the black people, we ain't got none of it." Look, we don't have power like that. We basically kind of like a POW over here. You know what I'm saying? These people, we fight for our liberation too. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other ones fight for liberation all over the world. So we don't hold that kind of power. Don't blame us. That's them people that's doing this nonsense. And unfortunately, they hide their hand and then they play everybody against each other, man. It's just being real with it.
Nah, I mean that's a great point because many people do feel as though there are a lot of biases when it comes to the West. We've seen even with this recent conflict. Now we've seen some people from the West sort of speak out and say that they feel there should be a ceasefire. We've seen others speak out and sort of say they're siding with Israel and they have every right to defend themselves with the most impunity. And it's very interesting because to hear that, especially as you said, from a lot of Caucasian males, you never really have heard that in inference to black people when they've been lynched or when they've been attacked. We've heard multiple things over the years, and not to stick to the most popular names that people know of, like a George Floyd incident, but even within those incidents, we never heard anybody say, well, blacks have a right to defend themselves against tyranny. Even with Dylan Roof, when he shot up that church, we didn't hear anything and say, oh, well, that was a terror attack or a hate crime. Blacks have a right to defend themselves. We've seen in the US them introduce anti-Asian hate crime bills. We've never seen an anti-black hate crime bill introduced. So a lot of the times, as you say, it's like the issues that we face are either falling on deaf ears or people don't seem to care. Now, we don't want to come across as though we are not empathetic to those who are experiencing any kind of suffering. The thing is, righteous people, you want righteousness for everybody, and it's like you said, we actually pray for that day where it could be prophesized, or prophecy in a sense where they say a small remnant of people will make it through and there will be peace on earth in that
Mm-hmm.
aspect. But a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
warmongers and stuff that we see now on many different sides and a lot of the ignorance, this could be quite prophetic. We're in the time we're seeing great deluges and floods, even here within the UK, certain places around the world, wildfires, a lot of things happening. So I guess even people coming from a religious theological understanding or even a scriptural understanding, they might look at what's happening nowadays and think, okay, we've heard about this before. Some people feel that the world goes in cycles. We've seen great
Mm-hmm.
civilizations rise up and we've seen them fall. And most of them have fallen due to their own corruption and things of that nature. Now, when we look at the West,
Preach.
one of the things that's quite interesting is, now I don't have all of the facts in front of me, but I'm sure some people could do the research or some already have or maybe well versed in it, but it's been asserted that the West, namely Britain, were the ones responsible for ultimately forming the state of Israel and stuff anyway. So as you said, a lot of these things that happen, people have allegiance, they have allyships, they have hidden hands in some aspects of what's going on. And it's unfortunate that in some cases they could sort of sit back and pretend to be impartial. And as you say, it's kind of a devilish thing where you kind of pretending to be impartial, but you're pitting people against each other and,
Yes, sir.
not being honorable, telling lies, putting one group against each other and stuff. And it's definitely a shame. We see a lot of that
It is.
happening to
It
this day.
really is. Hypocrisy all over the board. And then, like it's like these other people, man, like with the corruption. And man, the scripture talks about this too. Many people would be deceiving people. You talking about people, just because you rich and you got influence, that don't mean you capable of being the kind of person that's able to lead a nation. Because we've seen it time and time again. A
Bring it
lot of these
out.
rich people, they have spiritually, they ain't got it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's a great valid point because we know that sometimes society likes to purport that man is just an animal, which we know isn't true. We know we're dealing with spiritual beings, and the thing is, a lot of people are blinded by the worldly stuff, the third density level, materialism, and as you said, somebody can have more material in one aspect, but it doesn't denote their level of consciousness or even level of spirituality.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
I always say I treat everybody the same. I treat the homeless person on the street, I will talk to him with the same amount of respect that I would talk to a millionaire. Just because you're a millionaire, I'm gonna kiss your ass. And I've been around millionaires. You can see it's
Amen, brother.
it's documented. People can see me with them, and it's the same thing. I'm not gonna kiss nobody's tail, and that don't matter what jacket they're in, black, white, indifferent, anything. So that's the thing with us. We keep it real, but we're willing to call out a lot of the hypocrisy that we see. And like I said, with just some of the conversations that some of these other groups are having and some of the ways that we see in publicly and on social media, that they seem to be, I don't want to say targeted, but making egregious statements and actions towards black people. We know it's kind of a critical
Yes,
time in which we live in, just looking at things happening
it
around the
is.
world. So we've got to speak straight. There's no pussyfooting around with these groups and stuff.
Not no more. It ain't, man. It ain't. They treat it's like they just it's like we the big bad wolf, and a lot of the men in these other nations too are hypocrites too, man. They use it to their own benefit. Now some of these guys been committing incest, and we not perfect either. But come on, man. A lot of us not nothing like a lot of these people are, man. We was marginalized and we was indoctrinated, but these guys here, they be running around here just doing all kind of wickedness. They be out there having sex with other nations of women, but then, oh, it's a black man, he the big bad wolf. They be telling they women, oh, the black man this, that. But at the same time, no lie live forever, because the more you try to degrade us, the more and more that's going to make people want to, what I'm saying, show interest in us. So do what you do, man. But like I said, this is the Most High got a way of revealing things, whether it's through, people manifesting it, or whether it's through other sources. So yeah, man, we ain't worried about social media. You know what I'm saying? Because we know that they play with the views, they play with the numbers, but the truth is getting out there. Because we got word of mouth on the streets anyway. So it's all right. Let them do what they do, man. The wicked always try to make what's right look wrong, and what's wrong is right in these days and ages. So that's what the scriptures reveal. And I wish you had some verses. We could bring some of them verses out too.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely a testament to just the truth in the scriptures. We speak on, as they say, the wicked would always conspire against the righteous, and we definitely see that being made manifest in present time. Now, I want to say an incredible, shout out to a lot of the people that are just keeping their own mind within the situation and having their own independent thought and not getting dragged into, taking sides and things like that. I want to say shouts out to Dr. Umar Johnson and many
So,
others who have used their voice in a way to speak and highlight some of the other atrocities what are happening around the world, in Congo, in Africa, and just how some of those things are affecting us as a community and people within the diaspora and wider. Because if we don't speak up about our issues, we can easily see, like it has been for many years, it's either silenced or fallen to the wayside because other people have that lack of care or empathy, or they then have their own issue that becomes bigger than the issue we was fighting for. Like one of the main reasons that the women got women's rights, which we're not mad about in the Western system, was off the back of the civil rights era, which was the black people fighting for their rights, and then they brought in the women's rights and feminism and stuff, and recently we seen off the back of George Floyd and other things which are aforementioned, we see rights given then to the LGBT community and other groups and stuff. So it's always one of those things where when it comes to fighting for rights, I personally, it could be an implicit bias, as some may call it in the West, but I personally feel as though others haven't had to fight for that kind of freedom as much as black people have and still are within this present paradigm.
hey man, hey, that is man well articulated right there. I agree. Other people are too busy trying to fight for their liberation, and they can't expect us not to fight for ours. You know what I mean? It's like they not gonna do our issues. I'm sorry about the racket, man. But they're not gonna show really so interested in our issues because we can't expect us like they can expect us really so interested in that issue. So that's what Dr. Omar Johnson was basically saying. Now, if the burden was on the other groups, they would feel the same way. So they cannot, they got nothing to say about Dr. Omar Johnson. He did say, "I wish the war would stop. I'm sorry about the innocent people, but hey, I'm focused on my people. I'm not going to worry about the other group." You know what I'm saying? He made that clear. So they got to get that and run with it.
Oh yeah, and it's a thing nowadays to just have your own opinion or thought process and go against the majority. That's one of the reasons we're seeing a lot of the tyranny, terrorism, barbarism, brutality in the world today, because people are trying to force what they believe onto others, as opposed to, it might sound pie in the sky, but as opposed to really having that live and let live mentality and letting that actually continue forward. Another point that I want to touch on before we, or as we continue, I should say, is what's interesting now is we see a lot of people from other ethnic groups saying, well, we don't subscribe to the idea of there being any kind of chosen people or any differences between the races of people. We're all the same, and we don't see color anymore. And and I think it's quite hypocritical that people that have built so much up off seeing color and suppressing people down to their color and so on and so forth, oppressing people, colonizing people, genocide on mass levels. Like people are talking about genocide in the Gaza now, but we seldomly hear about the genocide of the Tasmanian people. We seldomly hear about the genocide of people that inhibited areas in North America, such as Canada and certain of those land masses, Australia, different places around the world, where they were completely, for the most part, wiped out in what we would say is ethnic cleansing. And people don't speak about a lot of this stuff. So what I find hypocritical is now that people have amassed so much wealth, so much power, so much influence, and have a comfortability in society where a lot of times they thrive and survive after hard work, creativity, blood, sweat, and toil of others. Now they want to
Bring it
take this
out.
stance and say, well, color doesn't matter, and now people are fighting for their rights or fighting to be heard, or people are coming into the understanding of who they are or who they feel they are, and feeling that, yeah, you know what, my color is significant, or my genealogy is significant, my bloodline is significant, my ancestry is significant, my culture is significant. Now a lot of people are saying, well, color doesn't matter. How can people still think like this in 2023? I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah, you said that. Good point. Yeah, color doesn't matter only when it's convenient. That playbook been ran a long time. We could bring out statistics, and I know you're gonna go at it in on it. I know you can bring out statistics. That's too bad. I wish we could pull out the
I
statistics
mean,
about what's going on.
yeah,
Yeah,
we could, and not to interject, because I like to we know in the times that we're living in, and I think, just in terms of critical information, we say what we say with a lot of research and our experience. So I mean, as much as people might think, with superiority intellectual in one aspect, or those guys that got higher IQ or anything like that, I generally like to keep things very rudimentary on these broadcasts so that anybody can sort of grasp and understand it. I think some people get lost sometimes when you throw too much stats into at them or into the equation. And I mean, they are there. We can always show and prove if necessary and pull those things up. But that's the reason sometimes I don't really bring them in, because when it comes to the truth, you know what I always say, the truth doesn't need anybody to defend it. It's got to defend itself. It's got to be just as true today as it was yesterday, as it will be tomorrow. So when we say certain things, yes, there definitely are the stats, but we're keeping this thing quite rudimentary for the listeners so they can grasp and understand it. We're not going too heavy for them. We're keeping things at just a basic, a rudimentary level. So as you said, we can pull up the stats if necessary, but we're hoping people can grasp just the facts of what we're saying. We don't want to have them lost in charts and stuff, because some of this stuff is like we've seen. I don't want to say introduced by the West or anything, but a lot of times they use stuff like charts and graphs, and they throw this stuff out, and they've got all these points to try and prove, and sometimes they get people lost in a lot of that, because there's a time and a place for everything. But I feel as though the truth definitely speaks for itself, and if anybody wants to
yeah,
contest it, let them do the research, because we're coming down to a low enough level for them, keeping things rudimentary. So if they can't grasp that, then they've got to do the additional research and their due diligence.
amen to that. Amen to that. And yeah,
And
the
I only say
stats
that,
speak for
not to
itself.
cut you. I only say that because they want too much from us. We gotta do. It's like we gotta do everything. We can't spoon feed them everything.
For real, for them stats is gonna get them, man. Scriptures don't lie. They say this and that, but at the same time, all I see is other nations benefiting. Then they want to turn around and say we are the same, man. Come on, man. They ain't fooling me with that nonsense. Come on. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, all these other nations, they push them ahead. You know what I'm saying? And then, like, when it comes to black people, we just, like, they want us to be consumers. And so, it's like, yo, man, you had Black Wall Street. As we know, certain powers in the government destroyed that. Yeah, blacks, so-called black people had their own communities, man, but, they destabilized it. And to be hypocritical and say, oh, now they got this. I don't know how they got other nations thinking, I'm fooling them, thinking like we just didn't have nothing going on. So it's a lot of deception, and it's a lot of manipulation. And then it's like they making everybody around the world, they done convince everybody around the world to hate us. You know what I'm saying? Which I think that it's time out for that, because, some of these groups, man, are just as wicked as the other ones. And to be honest, the reason why some of these groups had that prejudice is because a lot of them probably got the same bloodline. You know what I'm saying? And not saying that our people is perfect because we got some people that look like me and you. They just as wicked as the other ones. So we dealing with something right now, spiritual warfare going on this planet. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point because a couple of things popped up to me. As you said, and before this, I'm going to say, a lot of people will attest that there's only one race, the human race, and we're all human beings. We saw even on a broadcast the other day where the Hebrew Israelites were in Birmingham and they were being contested by a pro Palestine or potentially pro Hamas group as well. Also, but there was a white guy who was there filming it on his channel, Bear Audits UK, I believe is his YouTube channel, and he was asking the question, ain't we all the same? Didn't God create all of us? And of course, but there's different roles in even just in the world, just like we have within jobs and stuff. There's different roles within just the universe and the whole grand scheme of things. Just like we have different animals and insects, we have a huge plethora and variety represented on this planet. Even we look at the animal kingdom, and once I'm not saying man is an animal like they have purported, but we see in the animal kingdom sometimes these animals fight. They have issues. They have things that happen between them. Now I say all that to say a lot of people say, well, I don't see color or we're all the same. But my response to that generally when people say that is, oh, well, we're all the same. I say, okay, well, why do you treat some people different? Because if you're all the same, you should treat people different. So it's kind of like a fallacy in one aspect. And that's not to say people can't get along. People should definitely be able to get along. And another point is when we look at different groups, it's the same thing where we see just that kind of hypocrisy in society. Like when people say everybody's the same, but still, they treat people differently and stuff. So it's like they tell you something doesn't matter, but they act with the most impunity like it does matter. So I say that also because people may say, well, forget about your culture, forget about your ancestry, forget about your roots, forget about your bloodline. But when we look at the royal family in Britain, they are very selective and serious about their bloodline. And, some may even be able to trace and say, this was my ancestry and so on and so forth. In the Americas, I've traveled and met many people from a Caucasian background, and some of them will say, my ancestry is Dutch, or from the, a lot of people are familiar with their history and their ancestry. So they say it doesn't matter, but they act as though it does matter. So when it comes to black people or so-called black people, and they say, well, my ancestry is Israelite or my ancestry is Cometian, the what predated what we know as present day Egypt, or my ancestry is so on and so forth. There's like a demonization of, oh well, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to be selective in your bloodline. And when we display, even just within society, with homogenous reproduction, with how people respond, as you said, to other groups coming into their groups and potentially having interracial relationships and so on and so forth, procreation, how that's affected. But we see people very polar opposite against black people then kind of claiming their ancestry, and they do the same. Like, so they say bloodlines, all that stuff, ancestry ain't important, or it doesn't mean anything, I don't believe it, but they display that within their own actions. So I think that's quite interesting.
Oh yes, yes, yes. That's why a lot of the conscious community, the authentic ones, in the Hebrew Israelites, they are speaking out against how hypocritical a lot of these nations is. You know what I'm saying? Because they've been using that for so long, against us, and it's like, they in cahoots with each other, man. This is not working no more, man. It's just not working no more, man. Because you look at, if you pull up a statistics about where's our people at economically, we are at the same, level in the United States, probably all over the world right now than we was 10 years ago. And now we're starting to see some changes with the African. nation and Russia and Putin them. It's perfect. But you know what though? China and Russia did go in there and help Africa kind of move forward with the infrastructure. The United States and Britain. I mean, what that France or whatever? Is that France? Who over there right now? They did that. The Africans ran out of there. They told them they didn't want them over there no more. That was France or
Yeah, I believe that was in
yeah,
France and a few other European nations.
yeah, yeah. See, they said that them European nations wasn't doing
What
nothing,
they
man.
call the migrant crisis, they're calling it.
So there you have it right there. We got facts on it. So people that want to run already, oh man, y'all, okay, well we can pull up facts. And so the West, they time is just about up for the inception.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the stats are there. We've had our experiences. We've definitely done our research and stuff as well. I would say to anybody that wants to contest that we're already keeping things at such a rudimentary level. You would have to step your IQ up and go do the research yourself and then come at us with some facts that you if you want to claim as counter research or anything like that, and we can respond in kind. But as we said, we're not going to argue with people that have kind of displayed, and this isn't to everybody, this is just to like the trolls and certain people out there. They display that they're intellectually inferior, and they always want you to argue with them and go backwards and forwards on points. And as I said, there's no real time for that, especially in today's climate with everything what's happening. No more time for pussyfooting around and acting as though we're less intelligible than we are. We see quite just an attack on black intellectualism anyway. We did a report.
Yes, sir.
We did a report on it. I think a few months back, where it was a guy who did an article with Rolling Stone magazine, and he didn't want to mention certain black artists because he was saying he feels they're intellectually inferior. So we know that people are continuing with this thought process and this sort of false rhetoric. So
Ain't that,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what, bro? That's the cause. He ain't nobody calls it racist. That's all. And that's all right because you know what? We are racist to a certain extent, and not on the level that he is. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
not. I
But
just want to correct that and say not racist. We can be prejudiced, and I know some people
yeah,
will
yeah,
argue and say, "Oh,
yeah.
well, blacks can be racist too." I don't believe so, but we definitely can be prejudiced and implicitly biased, which there's nothing wrong with that, especially based off your experiences of others. I mean, sometimes yes, in a perfect world, we'd love for somebody to change the way we're thinking. Like it's like when we're mentioning some of these other groups, we don't look at them in an adverse way. We never started off looking at them in an adverse way, but we may have certain thought process now to how they act or think because what they've displayed to us over the years, like even primarily in the UK, what I've seen from like some of the Arab/Asian community and a lot of their anti-blackness, it's when we was growing up around them as kids, we just took them as everybody else. Like they look different to some degree. We took them as even like being the same as us because they're brown or quote unquote brown like us. And we say, okay, well, some of them they like us. We'd think they would identify with us and empathize with us, but in a lot of ways, and this doesn't speak for every single member of obviously, any nation or group, but for the most parts, we've seen just hostility from a lot of anti-black racism, and this is quantified not just by ourselves but even from members of those groups and communities coming out and speaking now. And there's an abundance of information out there on social media, TikTok, stuff like that, coming from actual people. I'm not citing those as absolute sources, but and we see it on mainstream media. I saw an Asian guy today from the UK who's a student at Cambridge University, and he was speaking out on his indoctrination and how he grew up with a mindset of like everybody's against them and they're against everybody who's not one of them. So we know that these things do exist, and we just want to say we want them to stop, to subside. Be that of people's own admission or be that of maybe something coming in universally that will really like change things and just hit a reset button on the current way that we see things happening in the world.
There you go. There you go. And I'm gonna break that down. And I say that with the racism to a certain extent, meaning that if I run to somebody and they show racist towards me, I'm not gonna counter him by being as racist as him. But I do have that right to treat a racist with a little racism, though. That's where I want to clarify that statement there. You see what I'm saying? So you come at me ignorant, then I'm gonna have to deal with you intellectually being a little racist towards you. Then I'm gonna hit you with a reality check, and might even hurt his feelings more with some scriptures. When I do that to him, I could psychologically hurt him. He probably wish he was dead by the time I get to psychologically breaking him down. You know how that is.
Yeah, no,
But
I'm
yeah,
with
bro.
it.
Hey, everything you said, sir, I definitely agree with you just about.
Yeah, I'm with it. I just wanted to put that button on it because even Western scholars, and some people may disagree, but they have purported that racism in actuality is prejudice plus power. So you can be as prejudiced to somebody as you want, especially if it's in response to how they treat you. As you said, it's sort of like a, not like for like, but a kind for kind, as we see with the world, what's happening now, where, even Israel saying, hey, somebody attacks us, we got a right to attack them back. So a lot of that can be understandable in one fundament, but when you don't have that power to then inflict any kind
Good
of
point, bro.
additional cause of detriment to that person,
Economical,
yeah,
yeah,
because
especially
you
economical.
can
You're right.
you can think what you want, but you ain't holding nobody back from no jobs or starting businesses or getting loans or any of that systemic stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
And
different.
you testify to a lot of that too. Like even out there in the UK, you see that a lot of these people are hypocritical. They sit down and say, "Hey, we want you to come out to our events and all this and that." But then you, a content creator, it's obvious that I just noticed, especially some of the content creators, a lot of the black ones, they try to suppress their views. And then they want to try to extort you for money. Hey, come, we can get you views, pay us this and that. No, that's called extortion, ain't that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I seen a broadcast recently. I think it was Philip Scott from the African Diaspora News Network, and he was speaking on the same thing. Just some of those difficulties because you can have a platform, and ultimately, you're using their platform within it, so they can turn around and change things up. At sometimes a drop of a hat, they can change policies to suit them. One day something's all right, the next day it isn't. I did
Yeah.
personally think when I experienced a lot of that, as I still do, that it was just me in one capacity, but now I see that it's quite a widespread thing that's happening to quite a few content creators, namely a lot of the black content creators or people that are speaking on just the community in the diaspora and stuff. So that's definitely an interesting point. But as you said, we see a lot of that. And Philip, he made a great point because he said a lot of times we hear, people within the community say we should have our own platforms and stuff, but you could build up a reputation or a platform, let's say amidst YouTube or something, but the moment you try and tell those people come here and come to my own website and stuff, a lot of them they won't do it. Or Philippi was even saying you can have like multiple channels, and if somebody's following one and you ask them to follow the other, they probably won't do it. And really it's something that should just be done like a click of a button. But there is a lot of I don't know if it's haterism in that aspect, and I think just sometimes non-progressive thinking where people get used to what they're seeing from some of these platforms, and as I've said, you try and get them somewhere else where it's like, okay, you want us on a platform where we can be uninhibited and have less restrictions and bring you more raw and uncut, but it can be difficult then converting the people over. So I always take the process like we always say sometimes, and I know you say it and share that same sentiment where you always say, if we reach one person, our job is done. But at the same time, we don't focus too much on the masses. We want stuff to definitely reach the masses, but we understand that a lot of the information that we put out is going to reach like a select few.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Especially what's going on with the times we living in. You know that. So yeah, that's all right though. It ain't about how many who get the message. It's about who hears it. Because most people, we know that the matrix system. We know all about that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a real thing. So guys, we definitely want to hear obviously your thoughts also as well. Do chime in the comments. We're gonna have some content coming soon. I'm back to online.com, which is gonna be looking at some different aspects where hip hop has been influential in speaking on political issues and stuff. Also, as we're still observing 50 years of hip hop and the culture. We're coming to the end of Black History Month in the UK. It is October 30th and it will be wrapping up tomorrow. So we want to say, obviously, we promote and celebrate Black excellence in history year round continually, but we've just observed that in the UK. So I want to say peace to everybody who put together any kind of programs for that. Also, the hip hop exhibition in Leeds was pretty dope. Hope guys got to check that out. So it's your boy Fonzie Neutron, represent for BadOnline.com. We're gonna wind down on this one. T-Juda, definitely a pleasure to have you join us and share your thoughts as we power out and look at some of these events that are currently afflicting the world.
Appreciate it.